In 1883, something began killing livestock across rural Kansas. The attacks followed a pattern no predator had ever shown: violence without hunger, destruction without purpose. A farmer named Henry Wallace started documenting the incidents in his daily journal. What he recorded would become one of the most disturbing accounts in American frontier history. Because as Wallace tracked the creature, his own entries began to change. His handwriting deteriorated, his memory fractured. And slowly, horrifyingly, he realized he wasn't hunting the monster, he was becoming it. For more accounts pulled from forbidden archives, step into the dark territory of the Encounter Archives, where folklore ends and the unspeakable begins. April 3rd, 1883, Wallace Farm, Kansas. The livestock pens were quiet this morning, too quiet for comfort. Found Bessie, our milk cow, lying twisted in the mud near the water trough. Her throat was crushed inward. The windpipe collapsed like someone had taken a mallet to it. Strange thing was, there wasn't much blood. The wound looked almost pressed, not torn, not bitten clean through like a wolf would do. I've been farming this land for 11 years now. Seen my share of predator kills, coyotes mostly, occasional mountain lion passing through. This doesn't match. The meat's untouched. A hungry animal doesn't leave a fresh kill to rot. Martha thinks it might be dogs gone feral, but I've never known dogs to have the jaw strength to do what was done to Bessie's neck. Jacob Miller stopped by around noon to borrow the post digger. Told him about Bessie. He mentioned he'd lost 2 chickens last week, found them scattered in the yard, necks broken, but not eaten. We agreed it was probably coincidence. Different animals, different methods. Still, there was something in his eyes when he left. The same unease I've been feeling since dawn. I should write to my brother in Pennsylvania. He always said the frontier was too wild, too unpredictable. Martha laughed at him then. She's not laughing tonight. The wind's picked up. I can hear the barn door rattling on its hinges. I secured it twice already. April 7th, 1883. Found another calf dead at dawn. This one belonged to the Hendersons, about 2 miles east. Samuel Henderson came by after breakfast, his face gray as winter sky. The calf had been dragged from the pen. The fence boards were splintered outward, not clawed through. Whatever did this had considerable force. I rode over to see for myself. The carcass was lying in the tall grass, maybe 40 yards from the pen. The neck was destroyed, same as Bessie, crushed from the sides. But here's what stopped me cold. The grass around the body was matted down in a rough circle, like something had been pacing. The stride length was wrong for a wolf. Too long, too irregular. Samuel's boy, Thomas, said he heard something the night before. A sound like a man screaming, but deeper. Guttural. He thought it was his imagination until he found the calf this morning. I told him screams carry strange on the prairie wind, especially at night. I'm not sure I believed my own words. Martha asked me tonight if I'd been sleeping poorly. Said I've been tossing and turning, muttering in my sleep. I don't remember any of it. Told her it was just the worry over the livestock. She nodded, but I caught her looking at my hands later, at the scratches across my knuckles. I must have scraped them on the barn door latch. Can't think what else would cause it. The moon's been waxing, 3/4 full tonight, bright enough to read by. April 10th, 1883. Jacob Miller shot at something last night. He came by this morning, rifle still in hand, to tell me about it. Said he heard his horses screaming around midnight, not the usual spooked whinny, but full-throated terror. By the time he got his boots on and made it outside, he saw a figure moving through his corn rows. "Upright," he kept saying. It was moving upright, Henry, like a man. But the legs were wrong, the knees bent backward. He fired 3 shots, swears he hit it with at least 1. The figure made no sound, no cry of pain, no grunt of impact. It simply turned and ran into the darkness, covering ground faster than any man could sprint. Jacob followed the blood trail for 20 yards before it just stopped. No body, no more blood, just trampled corn and silence. I didn't know what to say to him. Martha thinks he's been drinking, but I've known Jacob for 8 years. He's not a drinking man, and he's not prone to hysteria. Whatever he saw, he believed it was real. We rode out to his property together after lunch. Found the spent shell casings where he said they'd be. Found the disturbed corn rows. Even found what might have been blood on some of the stalks, dark, thick, already turning brown in the sun. But no tracks. No clear prints. Just scattered depressions in the soft earth that could have been anything. Sheriff Brooks arrived at the Miller farm while we were searching. He's been making rounds since the Henderson boy reported the calf. Took notes in his little leather book, asked standard questions. When Jacob mentioned the upright figure, Brooks's pencil stopped moving. He looked up, studied Jacob's face for a long moment, then went back to writing without comment. Before he left, Brooks pulled me aside. "You been sleeping all right, Henry?" he asked. I told him the same thing I told Martha, just worried about the animals. He nodded slowly, then said something that's been sitting heavy in my mind all evening. Funny thing about worry. Makes a man do things he don't remember doing. I asked him what he meant. He just tipped his hat and rode off. April 13th, 1883. I'm writing this entry by lamplight, my hands unsteady. Last night was the full moon, and for the first time in weeks, nothing happened. No attacks, no screams. The animals were calm. I slept through the entire night without waking once. Martha confirmed it this morning. She said I didn't even stir. It should feel like relief, but it doesn't. It feels like the pause between lightning and thunder. Jacob came by around mid-morning. He looked haggard, deep circles under his eyes. Said he'd stayed up all night with his rifle, watching the corn rows. Nothing appeared. His horses were peaceful. He seemed almost disappointed, which struck me as odd until I realized I felt the same way. We'd both been bracing for something terrible, and its absence felt like a broken promise. The community meeting was held this afternoon at the church. Nearly every farmer within 10 miles showed up. Sheriff Brooks stood at the front and laid out the facts in his calm, methodical way. 7 livestock deaths in 10 days, all within a 5-mile radius, all showing similar injuries. No meat consumed. No clear predator identified. Reverend Michaels suggested we were dealing with a pack of wolves driven mad by disease. Jacob stood up and described what he'd seen: the upright figure, the backward knees, the inhuman speed. Some folks nodded. Others looked at their boots. One of the Thompson boys muttered something about Indian spirits, which earned him a sharp look from his father. Brooks proposed organizing hunting parties for the next few nights. Set up a rotation, armed men watching the vulnerable properties in shifts. Everyone agreed. I volunteered for tomorrow night's watch at the Henderson place. Martha wasn't pleased, but she didn't argue. When I got home, I found mud on the kitchen floor. Thick, dark mud with bits of prairie grass stuck in it. The kind that comes from the low creek bed past the north pasture. Martha swore she'd mopped that floor yesterday afternoon, and I believe her. I checked my boots. They were clean. Checked the back door. It was latched from the inside, same as I'd left it. I cleaned up the mud without mentioning it to Martha. No sense worrying her further. But I keep thinking about what Brooks said. About worry making a man do things he doesn't remember. April 17th, 1883. The watch parties have been running for 4 nights now. Nothing. No attacks, no sightings, no disturbances. The full moon has waned to a sliver. Folks are starting to relax, suggesting maybe whatever it was has moved on. Jacob's the only one still keeping vigil every night, and even he's begun to look foolish doing it. But I've been noticing things, small things that don't add up. Yesterday morning, I woke with scratches on my forearms, fresh ones, still slightly raised and red. Martha asked if I'd been working in the thorn bushes. I told her yes, though I couldn't remember doing any such work. My clothes from the previous day were muddy at the knees and hem, despite the fact that it hadn't rained, and I'd spent most of the day repairing the barn roof. This morning, I found my boots by the back door. Laces still tied, soles caked with creek mud. I distinctly remember removing them by the front door last night and setting them on the rack to dry. When I asked Martha if she'd moved them, she looked at me strangely and said, "I must have done it myself in the night." I don't remember doing it. I've started checking my journal entries more carefully. This afternoon, I read back through the past 2 weeks, and I noticed something that turned my stomach cold. My handwriting has been changing. The early entries are neat, controlled, legible. But starting around April 10th, the letters begin to slant more dramatically. The spacing becomes irregular. Some words are pressed so hard into the page that they've torn through to the next sheet. There's a passage from April 14th that I don't remember writing at all. It says, "The moon pulls at something inside. I can feel it moving beneath my skin, restless and hungry." I showed it to Martha. She went pale and asked if I'd been drinking. I haven't touched spirits in months. She suggested I might be getting sick. Fever can cause confusion, lost time. I agreed it was probably fever. But I don't feel sick. I feel strong. Stronger than I've felt in years. Tonight, I noticed something else. When I was washing for supper, I looked at my hands in the basin water. My fingernails seemed darker at the beds, almost bruised. And when I flexed my fingers, I felt something in the joints. Not pain exactly, but a sense of potential, like they wanted to move in ways they shouldn't. Jacob stopped by at dusk. He looked worse than I've seen him yet, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling. He said he'd been having dreams. In them, he's chasing something through the corn rows. But when he finally corners it, he realizes it's running on all fours and wearing his own face. He laughed when he told me, but it was a broken sound. I told him to get some sleep. He said he would, but I could see he was lying. The moon's beginning to wax again. 3/4 tonight. I can see it through the window now as I write. It's brighter than I remember it being, so bright it almost hurts to look at. Martha just called from the bedroom, asking if I'm coming to bed. I told her soon, but I don't feel tired. I feel restless. There's an itch beneath my skin, starting in my hands and spreading up my arms. It's not unpleasant. It feels almost like excitement. I keep thinking about the cattle, about the crushed throats and untouched meat, about violence without hunger. I should close this entry and go to bed. But I find myself drawn to the window instead. looking out at the fields. The grass is silver in the moonlight. The trees along the creek are dark shapes against the sky. Something's moving out there. I can see it at the edge of the property, where the prairie grass grows tall. It's too far away to make out clearly, but it's large, and it's moving toward the house. No, I'm wrong. I just realized. It's not moving toward the house. It's moving away from it. April 20th, 1883. I'm writing this by memory. That night, the 17th. I didn't write anything after that last line. I found my journal on the floor this morning, the pen dried out beside it, ink spilled across the page. The entry just stops mid-thought. Martha said I came to bed around 3 in the morning, my clothes damp with dew, my feet bare and muddy. I don't remember any of it. What I do remember is waking up exhausted, my muscles aching like I'd spent the night hauling fence posts. My throat was raw, as if I'd been shouting, and there were scratches, deep ones this time, running down both arms from shoulder to wrist. When Martha saw them at breakfast, she dropped the coffee pot. It shattered on the floor, and she just stood there, staring at my arms with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Fear. She was afraid of me. I tried to explain, but I had no explanation to give. I told her I must have been sleepwalking, must have wandered outside and gotten caught in the thorn bushes by the creek. The scratches looked like thorn scratches, I said. She nodded slowly, mechanically, and began cleaning up the broken pottery without another word. But I could see her watching me all day from the corners of her eyes. Sheriff Brooks came by in the afternoon. Said there'd been another attack, this time at the Morrison farm, 6 miles north. 3 sheep torn apart in their pen. Same pattern as before. Crushed throats, broken bones, meat untouched. The attack happened sometime between midnight and dawn on the 18th, the night after the full moon had passed. Brooks asked me where I'd been that night. I told him home, in bed. He asked if Martha could confirm it. I said yes, though the lie sat heavy in my chest. Martha had been asleep. She couldn't confirm anything. And even if she'd been awake, what could I tell her? That I don't remember where I was, that I woke up with mud on my feet and blood under my fingernails that I couldn't account for. Before Brooks left, he did something that chilled me to my core. He opened his notebook and showed me a sketch he'd made. Boot prints, he said, found at 3 different attack sites. Same size, same wear pattern on the heel. Size 10, right boot worn slightly more on the outside edge from an old ankle injury that never healed quite right. I wear size 10 boots. I broke my ankle falling from a horse in 1879. It healed crooked. Brooks didn't say anything else. He just closed the notebook, tipped his hat to Martha, and rode away. But I saw the way his hand rested on his pistol as he mounted his horse. April 23rd, 1883. Jacob Miller is dead. They found him this morning in his cornfield, 40 yards from his house. His rifle was lying beside him, both barrels discharged. His throat had been crushed with such force that his neck bones had splintered through the skin. The corn around his body was trampled in a wide circle, as if something had been pacing around him for hours. Samuel Henderson, who discovered the body, said Jacob's eyes were still open, staring up at the sky. There was no fear in them, he said, just recognition. The funeral is tomorrow. Martha insists we attend, though I can barely bring myself to face Jacob's widow. I keep thinking about the last time I saw him, exhausted, trembling, describing those dreams of chasing something through the corn, something with his own face. I've been having similar dreams. In them, I'm running through the prairie grass at night, the moon enormous overhead. I'm not afraid. I'm not running from anything. I'm running towards it, towards some invisible boundary I need to cross, some transformation I need to complete. My body feels different in these dreams, stronger, more fluid. My hands aren't quite hands anymore. When I wake, I can still feel the ghost of that strength in my limbs. And I find myself wanting to return to the dream, wanting to cross that boundary and see what waits on the other side. This afternoon, I caught myself standing at the window for nearly an hour, watching the fields, waiting for dusk. Martha asked me what I was looking at. I told her nothing. But that wasn't true. I was looking for movement, for shapes in the grass, for signs of what I'm becoming. Because I know now. I've known since I read Brooks's notebook, since I saw those boot prints and recognized them as my own. Whatever killed Jacob is living inside me, and it's getting stronger. April 25th, 1883. I think. I've read this entry 6 times. I don't remember writing the last paragraph. The handwriting is mine. I recognize the slant, the way I cross my T's. But the words feel foreign. They say, Martha locked the bedroom door last night. I heard the bolt slide home. She thinks I don't know, but I can hear everything now. The mice in the walls, the insects in the thatch. Her heartbeat on the other side of the door, fast and frightened like a rabbit's. Below that, in darker ink, pressed so hard the pen nearly tore the page. I wanted to break the door down. I wanted to show her there's nothing to fear. But I know that's not true anymore. I have no memory of writing any of this. But I remember the feeling. I remember standing outside our bedroom door, my hand on the frame, feeling the grain of the wood beneath my palm. Feeling how easy it would be to splinter it, how satisfying the crack would sound. I slept in the barn last night, or tried to. Around midnight, I heard something moving in the rafters, something too large to be a barn cat. I lit the lantern and searched every corner, but found nothing. When I finally lay back down, I realized the sounds had stopped at the moment I'd started looking, as if whatever was making them had been me all along. This morning, I found scratches on the barn door, deep gouges in the wood, starting about 7 feet up and dragging downward. The pattern looked like claw marks, but when I held my hand up to them, my fingers aligned perfectly with the spacing. I'm writing this in the afternoon, sitting at the kitchen table. Martha is at the Hendersons' farm helping with some sewing circle. She told me she'd be gone until supper. She didn't kiss me goodbye. She hasn't touched me in days. The moon is waxing again, more than half full now. I can feel it even during the day, pulling at something deep in my chest. My hands won't stay still. I keep flexing my fingers, feeling that strange potential in the joints. Earlier, I squeezed the handle of the water pump so hard the metal bent. I should leave, pack a bag and ride east, put distance between myself and Martha, between myself and this farm. But I know I won't, because part of me, the part that's growing stronger every day, doesn't want to leave. It wants to stay. It wants to run through the fields at night. It wants to feel the grass beneath its feet and the moon on its face and the power in its limbs. It wants to hunt. April 28th, 1883. Found this journal open on the kitchen table. I live alone now. Martha left yesterday. Took the wagon and her trunk and rode to her sister's place in Lawrence. She left a note on the table, her handwriting shaky. I can't watch you disappear anymore. Come find me when you're yourself again, if you ever are. I don't blame her. I saw what she saw. 3 nights ago, I woke up in the north pasture naked, covered in mud and grass stains. The sheep were terrified, pressed against the far fence, bleeding. One of them had a gash across its flank, not deep, but deliberate, like something had been practicing restraint. I have no memory of leaving the house, no memory of walking half a mile across my own property. But I remember the dream I was having when I woke. I was running on all 4s, and it felt natural. More natural than walking upright has ever felt. Sheriff Brooks came by this afternoon with 2 deputies. They searched the barn, the shed, even the cellar. Brooks didn't say what they were looking for, but I knew. They were looking for evidence, blood, torn clothing, anything that might connect me to the attacks. They found nothing because I've been careful, or rather, the thing I become has been careful. It doesn't leave evidence at my own property. It goes elsewhere, to the Morrison farm, to the Henderson place, to Jacob Miller's cornfield. Before Brooks left, he asked me directly, "Henry, are you responsible for these killings?" I looked him in the eye and said no, because the truth is, I'm not responsible. The man sitting here writing this entry isn't capable of crushing a cow's throat with his bare hands. The man sitting here is weak, confused, terrified. But the thing I become under the waxing moon, that's something else entirely. Brooks studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I believe you," he said. "But belief doesn't change facts. Those boot prints keep showing up. Size 10, worn heel. You're the only man in this county who matches that description and has access to all the attack sites." He told me not to leave town, told me he'd be watching my property for the next few nights. Then he rode away with his deputies, and I was alone. The moon is 3/4 full tonight. I can feel the change starting already. My skin itches. My joints ache. There's a pressure building behind my eyes, like my skull is too small to contain what's growing inside it. I should turn myself in, lock myself in the jail cell and let Brooks keep watch. But I know I won't, because when the moon rises, the thing inside me won't care about locks or iron bars or good intentions. It will find a way out. It always does. May 1st, 1883. This margin note is in different handwriting. I found my journal this morning with a note written in the margin of yesterday's entry. The handwriting is crude, unpracticed, like a child learning to write. It says, "You're afraid of the wrong thing. The monster isn't what you become. It's what you've always been." I didn't write that note, but I recognize the ink. It's from my pen, and there's no one else here. Last night was the night before the full moon. I locked every door, barricaded myself in the root cellar with a lantern and this journal. I was determined to stay conscious, to document whatever happens when the change comes. I was going to watch myself transform, understand it, maybe even control it. I remember sitting in the cellar as dusk fell, my back against the rough stone wall. I remember lighting the lantern. I remember opening this journal to write. Then nothing. Just a gap where a memory should be. When I woke, it was dawn. I was still in the cellar, but I was on the opposite side of the room. The journal was open to a blank page. The barricade I'd built, 200 pounds of grain sacks and old furniture, had been moved aside without a sound. The cellar door was open. Outside, I found tracks. My boot prints led from the cellar to the creek, then disappeared into the water. On the far bank, there were other prints, bare feet, but the spacing was wrong. Too far apart, the toes splayed unnaturally wide. The prints led north, toward the Henderson property. I followed them. A mile from my farm, I found the site of last night's attack, the Henderson's draft horse, dead in the field. Its throat crushed, the familiar pattern of destruction. But this time, there was something new, something that made my blood run cold. The horse had been partially eaten. Not much. Just the soft tissue around the throat, torn away in ragged chunks, as if whatever killed it had finally stopped resisting its hunger, had finally admitted what it really wanted. I stood there in the morning light, staring at the dead horse, and I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Relief. Because now I understand. The attacks before were just practice. The thing inside me was learning control, learning to hunt without feeding. But that control is breaking down. The transformation is becoming more complete. Soon there won't be anything left of Henry Wallace. Just the thing that wears his skin during the day and runs free under the moon at night. I should warn someone. Should ride to town and tell Brooks everything. But when I think about doing that, my hands start to shake. Not from fear, from rage. The thing inside me doesn't want to be caged, doesn't want to be stopped, and its will is becoming harder to resist. Tonight is the full moon. I can feel it approaching like a storm on the horizon. My skin is hot to the touch. My vision keeps blurring, sharpening, blurring again. When I look at my hands, I see something between human and animal. The nails are darker, thicker. The joints bend in ways they shouldn't. I've been writing this entry in fragments throughout the day, stopping whenever the shaking becomes too violent to hold the pen. The sun is setting now. The moon will rise in less than an hour. This might be my last entry as myself, as Henry. So I need to write this while I still can. I'm sorry. To Martha, to Jacob's widow, to every family that's lost livestock or loved ones. I'm sorry I didn't understand sooner. I'm sorry I didn't stop this when I still had the chance. But I'm not sorry enough to end it. Because beneath the apology, beneath the guilt and fear, there's something else. Something that's been growing stronger with each moon cycle. Anticipation. The moon is rising. I can see it through the window, enormous and silver. My skin is splitting, not bleeding, just opening like a chrysalis. Beneath it, I can see fur, dark and coarse. I need to finish this. Need to write the truth before I can't anymore. The truth is this. The monster isn't taking over. There is no invasion, no possession. The monster was always here, buried under years of civilization and Sunday sermons and marriage vows. The moon didn't create it. The moon just gave it permission. And God help me. I'm grateful. May 2nd, 1883. Date marked 3 days later. I lost track of time. I found this journal in the barn, buried under hay. I don't remember hiding it there. The last entry was dated May 1st, but according to the calendar Martha left hanging in the kitchen, today is May 2nd. Only 1 day has passed. Yet it feels like I've lived a lifetime in that missing time. My clothes were shredded when I woke, not torn by branches or thorns, shredded from the inside, as if my body had expanded and burst through the fabric. I found the remains scattered across the north pasture, mixed with grass and mud, and something darker that I don't want to identify. There's blood under my fingernails. Not my blood. When I tried to wash it away this morning, I noticed my hands looked different. The proportions were slightly off, fingers too long, knuckles too prominent. By afternoon, they'd return to normal, or what passes for normal now. I walked the property line at dawn, looking for signs of what I'd done. Found them at the creek crossing. Massive tracks pressed deep into the mud, neither fully human nor fully animal. The stride length measured nearly 6 feet. Whatever made those tracks was built for speed, for hunting. I followed the trail north. It led to the Morrison farm. What I found there will haunt me until the day I die. 2 more sheep dead, their throats crushed in the familiar way. But also, the barn door ripped from its hinges, claw marks gouged 4 inches deep into the support beams, and boot prints, my boot prints, leading from the carnage back toward my property. Samuel Morrison's young son saw me standing at the edge of his property. He was maybe 10 years old, standing in the farmhouse doorway with wide, terrified eyes. He pointed at me and said something to his mother. She pulled him inside and slammed the door. I heard the bolt slide home. They know, or they suspect. Either way, I can't go back there. When I returned home, I found Sheriff Brooks waiting on my porch. He wasn't alone. 4 armed men from town stood beside him, rifles held loose but ready. Brooks' face was grim, aged 10 years since I'd last seen him. "We need to talk, Henry," he said. "There was another attack last night. The Morrison place. And the Hendersons found tracks on their property. Tracks leading back to your farm." I could have denied it. Could have played innocent, confused, victimized by circumstance. But I was tired. So tired of lying. So I told him the truth. I don't remember what I do at night. I wake up with blood on my hands and gaps in my memory. If you're here to arrest me, I won't resist. Brooks looked relieved, as if he'd expected violence. "Come with us peacefully," he said. "We'll sort this out in town. Get you a doctor, maybe. Figure out what's happening." I almost went with him, almost surrendered to human justice and human mercy. But as I stepped off the porch, the moon caught my eye, just barely visible in the afternoon sky, still full and bright. And I felt it again, that pull, that recognition. The thing inside me whispered, "They can't hold you. Locks mean nothing. Bars mean nothing. You are beyond their authority now." I told Brooks I needed to get my coat from inside. He nodded, told his men to wait. I walked into the house, through the kitchen, out the back door. Then I ran. I heard shouting behind me, heard the crack of rifle fire, felt a bullet pass close enough to stir my hair. But I didn't stop. I ran toward the creek, toward the tall grass, toward the wild places where men with guns don't follow. I've been hiding in an old grain shed near the eastern border of my property since this afternoon. It's nearly dusk now. The moon will rise soon, and I'll transform again. But this time, I won't wake up in my own bed. This time, there's no going back. May 5th, 1883. Sheriff Brooks's private notebook, transcribed from official record. Henry Wallace remains at large. Search parties have combed a 10-mile radius without success. The man has vanished as completely as smoke. But the attacks have not stopped. Last night, 3 calves at the Peterson farm, all killed in the same manner. Thomas Henderson reported seeing a figure running upright through his wheat field around midnight, human in general shape, but moving with an animal's gait. He fired 2 shots. Both missed. This morning, Sarah Morrison found tracks outside her children's bedroom window, the same tracks we've been finding at every attack site. She's taken the children to her mother's place in Topeka. I don't blame her. The townspeople are organizing their own hunting parties. Some talk about wolves, about rabid dogs, about natural explanations, But others speak in whispers about older things, about curses and transformations and the evil that walks under the full moon. I've been a lawman for 15 years. I've seen men commit terrible acts and invent elaborate excuses. But I've never seen anything like this. The evidence points to Henry Wallace. The boot prints match. The pattern of attacks radiates from his property. Witnesses place him near multiple scenes. Yet the physical impossibility of what he's supposedly doing defies explanation. No man can cover 6 miles of rough terrain in under an hour. No man can tear through barn doors with his bare hands. No man can crush a horse's windpipe as easily as snapping kindling. Unless he's not a man anymore. I found something at the Wallace farm today while searching the property. His journal, hidden in the barn. I've read it cover to cover. The descent is documented in his own hand. The memory gaps, the physical changes, the growing awareness of what he was becoming. The final entries are the most disturbing. Not because of what they describe, but because of how they describe it. There's an evolution in the prose. The early pages are filled with horror and denial. But by the end, there's something else. Acceptance, almost eagerness. On the last page he wrote, "The monster was always here." I believe him. We found Martha Wallace in Lawrence, brought her in for questioning. She confirmed everything, the sleepwalking, the unexplained injuries, the night she woke to find him standing over the bed, his eyes reflecting lamplight like an animal's. She said something that stayed with me. She said, "He was always gentle, always kind. But sometimes I'd catch him staring at his hands like they belonged to someone else. Like he was waiting for them to become what they were meant to be." What were they meant to be? That's what haunts me. Are we hunting a man afflicted by some disease, some madness? Or are we hunting something older? Something that just wore Henry Wallace's shape until it was strong enough to emerge. The moon is waning now. 3/4 tonight. If the pattern holds, the attacks will stop after tomorrow. But I don't think they will. I think whatever Henry Wallace has become is past the point of being controlled by lunar cycles. I think it's finished transforming. May 8th, 1883. Henry's journal, final entry. Found at abandoned line shack, 12 miles northwest of Wallace Farm. I'm writing this because someone needs to know the truth. Not the truth Brooks thinks he knows, or the truth the town whispers about. The real truth. I'm not cursed. I'm not possessed. I'm not a victim of disease or madness. I'm free. For 3 days, I've been living in the wild country beyond the farms and settlements. No walls, no schedules, no pretending to be something I'm not. And I've never felt more myself. The first night after I ran, I tried to fight the transformation, tried to stay human. But when the moon rose, resistance became meaningless. My body opened like a door I didn't know existed, and what came through was magnificent. I'm not a wolf. That's what people will say when they tell this story. They'll call me a werewolf, wrap me in familiar folklore. But that's not what this is. I'm something between. Something that walks upright when it chooses, runs on all fours when it doesn't. Something that thinks with human cunning, but feels with animal certainty. I hunted that night. Really hunted, not the clumsy attempts of previous weeks. Brought down a deer in open country, chased it for 2 miles without tiring. The kill was clean, efficient. And afterward, I fed. That's the part that Henry Wallace would have been ashamed of. But I'm not ashamed. I'm beyond shame, beyond guilt. Those are human constructs, and I've shed them along with my human limitations. During the day, I'm still mostly Henry. I can think clearly, write coherently. But the boundaries are dissolving. Each transformation takes me further from what I was and closer to what I'm becoming. Soon, there won't be any difference between day and night, between man and beast. Soon, there will just be this: pure, whole, perfect. I know what you're thinking as you read this, whoever you are. You're thinking I'm mad, deluded, that I've rationalized atrocity into enlightenment. Maybe you're right. Maybe this is just madness wearing philosophy's clothes. But I don't think so. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not divided. I'm not fighting against my nature or pretending to be civilized or swallowing rage to maintain propriety. I'm exactly what I am, without apology or pretense. And it feels like coming home. I'm leaving this journal in the line shack because I won't need it anymore. Writing is a human habit, and I'm letting go of human habits. Martha can have the farm. Brooks can close his investigation. The town can tell whatever stories help them sleep at night. I'm going north, into the territories where humans are sparse and the wild still holds dominion. I'll hunt, I'll run, I'll live as I was meant to live. And if anyone comes looking for me, if Brooks organizes his posse, if the farmers come with their rifles and their righteousness, tell them this: the thing they're hunting doesn't fear them, it pities them. Because they're still trapped in the lie, still pretending civilization makes them better than the animals they slaughter for food, still believing the thin veneer of culture and religion makes them superior to the natural world. I've seen through the lie. I've torn it away and found something truer underneath. The moon is rising. I can feel my skin beginning to split. It doesn't hurt anymore. It feels like relief. This is my last entry as Henry Wallace. Next time I write, if I ever write again, it will be as something else. Something whole. May 12th, 1883. Sheriff Brooks's private notebook. We found the line shack, found Wallace's journal, read every damned word. The hunting party rode out at dawn. 12 men, all armed, all determined to end this. We tracked him for 2 days, following signs and rumors. Found kills along the way. Deer mostly, but also a bear cub torn apart near Willow Creek. The tracks around the carcass were unlike anything in nature. On the second night, we made camp in a ravine, posted guards in shifts. I took the midnight watch with Thomas Henderson. The moon was just past half, waning toward darkness. Around 2 a.m, Thomas grabbed my arm, pointed to the ridge above our camp. Something was standing there, silhouetted against the sky. It had Henry Wallace's general shape: 2 legs, 2 arms, upright posture. But the proportions were wrong. The arms were too long. The head sat wrong on the shoulders. And when it moved, it didn't walk. It flowed, like water finding its course. Thomas raised his rifle. I told him to wait, because the thing on the ridge wasn't attacking. It was just watching us, studying us like a naturalist studies insects. We stood like that for maybe 5 minutes, man and monster, neither moving. Then it dropped to all fours and vanished over the ridge so fast I barely tracked the movement. When we searched the ridge at dawn, we found tracks, human feet. But the depth of the impressions suggested something far heavier than any man. And the stride length measured 8 feet. That was our only sighting. We searched for 3 more days without finding another trace. It's like he learned to cover his tracks, or maybe he just moved beyond our ability to follow. We rode back to town empty-handed. The mayor wanted to organize a larger search party, bring in hunters from neighboring counties. I convinced him to wait. Because I realized something during those nights in the wilderness. We're not hunting Henry Wallace anymore. We're hunting something that used to be Henry Wallace. And it's smarter than us, faster than us, and completely uninterested in returning to human society. The attacks in our county have stopped. No livestock deaths in over a week. Either it's moved on or it's learned to hunt wild game exclusively. Either way, it's no longer our problem. Or so I tell myself. But I think about that moment on the ridge, the way it stood there, watching us. And I wonder, was it saying goodbye? Or was it showing us how easily it could end us if it chose? I prefer to believe the former, but I suspect the latter. Martha Wallace has filed for divorce in absentia. She's selling the farm and moving back east. When I told her we'd found Henry's journal, she asked if I thought he was still alive. I said yes. She asked if I thought he was still Henry. I didn't answer, because I don't know, and I'm not sure it matters anymore. The man named Henry Wallace is gone. What remains is something else entirely. June 3rd, 1883. Unsigned letter received at Kansas Territorial Office, forwarded to Sheriff Brooks. I found this letter slipped under my office door this morning. No postmark, no signature, just a single page in handwriting I almost didn't recognize. But I know it. I've studied it for weeks now. It's Henry Wallace's hand, or what used to be his hand. The letter reads, "To whoever finds this, I'm writing from the high country north of the Republican River. The settlements are far behind me now. Out here there are no farms, no fences, no men pretending the wild can be tamed. The transformation is complete. During the day, I still have human thoughts, human memories, but they feel distant, like stories someone told me about a person I used to know. At night, under the moon, I am what I was always meant to be. I don't regret what happened in Kansas. The livestock, the fear, even Jacob Miller, they were necessary, part of the process of becoming. But I am sorry for Martha. She deserved better than a husband who disappeared into his own nature. Tell her I'm happy. Tell her the man she married found peace, even if it meant leaving humanity behind. I won't return to settled country. The thing I've become belongs to the spaces between civilization, the forests and plains and mountains where humans are visitors, not owners. I'll hunt. I'll run. I'll live as the animals live, without regret or reflection. If you come looking for me, you won't find me. I've learned to hide what I am during the day, to blend with trappers and traders when necessary. And at night, I'm faster than your horses and smarter than your tracking. But you won't come looking, because deep down, you're relieved. Relieved the monster has gone away. Relieved you don't have to confront what I represented. I was the truth you couldn't accept. That civilization is a choice, not a destiny. That the wild still lives in all of you, buried under social contracts and Sunday services. You spend your lives suppressing it, killing it, pretending it never existed. I stopped pretending. That's my only crime. The moon is bright tonight. For the first time, I feel safe. Goodbye. I've read this letter a dozen times, shown it to no one. What would I say? That the monster we hunted has found contentment? That evil has discovered peace? Because that's what troubles me most. Not the violence, not the transformation, but the satisfaction in those final words. The moon is bright tonight. For the first time, I feel safe. What kind of safety requires leaving humanity behind? I don't know if Henry Wallace is still out there. I don't know if he's alive or dead, man or beast or something between. But I know this. We failed to save him. Not because we didn't try hard enough, but because he didn't want to be saved. He chose this. Chose the wild over the civilized. Chose instinct over conscience. Chose becoming over being. And sometimes, late at night when the moon is full and bright, I wonder if he was right. I wonder if we're the ones living half lives. If civilization is the cage, not the sanctuary. But then morning comes, and I remember who I am, what I am. Human, for better or worse. Henry Wallace was my friend, my neighbor, a good man by every measure that mattered, until he became something else. The case is closed, officially listed as missing, presumed dead. The attack stopped. The town moved on. Life returned to normal. But I kept his journal, locked in my desk drawer where no one else will read it. Because someday, someone might need to know the truth. That monsters are real, that they can be your neighbor, your friend, your husband. That they walk among us, buried under skin and civility, waiting for the moon to set them free.